right, welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining us on another exciting weekly Wednesday webinar here at the United States Senate Federal Credit Union. We want to thank you all for taking time out of your day, and being with us. We have a great webinar for you all this evening, and we hope you all are ready. As always, we are going to give it a couple of minutes. We do know we have a very large number of people that are RSVP for this webinar, so we want to make sure we give you all a few minutes to log in, get yourself comfortable. If you are in well, I guess anywhere in the US, I mean, it's cold. So this is going to be an exciting webinar. So I would suggest if anyone have a warm drink available next to you, please go ahead and get that ready because this webinar is going to be exciting. So, and again, we do want to send our best wishes to everyone, especially to those people over in the West Coast that went through the wildfires in the Southern California. We are here for you. If anyone has been impacted, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to assist. Again, our hearts go out to anyone that has been impacted by the fires in Southern California. Now, you probably are missing. You probably for those that are frequent attendees here with us, you probably noticed that today we are missing two of my colleagues. Both Eddie and Andrea won't be able to join us today. They had a different commitment and they did send their warm wishes. But we still have an amazing panel here that will be able to take you through this exciting webinar. So again, just giving you all one more minute here or 30 more seconds, and then I'll pass it on to my right hand and she will do the intros, and then we'll get started here shortly. As always, a reminder, if you have any questions, please feel free to use either the chat feature or the Q&A. We love to hear from you. So if at any point you have any questions, please drop them in the chat or the Q&A box. And it is our commitment that we will answer every question before we let you go this evening. So again, at any point, if you have any questions, please, we invite you to send those through the chat or the Q&A. And with that being said, Kim, it's 6:02. So if you want to go ahead and start with the introductions.
Thank you so much, Milton, and welcome everybody. We're so excited to have you join us for the great wealth transfer, how to pass and receive wealth. So welcome. If you're a member, we value you. If you're not a member, we would love to talk to you about membership, and we just value your business. Tonight's panelist team, I'm Kim Fridley. You guys probably know me by now, Membership Development Analyst. Milton, you just heard him introduce me. He is our Membership Development Officer and Manager. We have Carrie Lazar. Everybody knows that Carrie is in our marketing department. She's our expert content creator. All of this webinar information, the slides are all organic, all done by Carrie Lazar. And tonight we have a really special guest, Madison Love. She's really the subject matter expert on IRAs and the subject tonight. So she has a wealth of knowledge. She is our IRA manager. So give it up for Madison Love.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm really excited about this topic. I get to talk about IRAs and retirement accounts all day long, every day, and this kind of expanded even beyond that. So I've had a lot of fun studying this, and so let's get to it. So an interesting topic that's going around right now is this great wealth transfer. So let's talk about what it is and what we want for your key takeaways today. So our goal is that at the end of this, that you have a better understanding of the scope and impact of the great wealth transfer that's going on in America right now, strategies for accumulating and investing that wealth effectively, and tips for communicating, distributing, and receiving that wealth. And then we also want to give you some resources to help you take actionable steps towards that financial security. So there should be something for everyone here, no matter if you're somebody who has wealth that's eventually hoping to pass it on, or somebody who could potentially receive wealth, or if you're anywhere in between. So let's first define it. So with what is the Great Wealth Transfer? Right now, we're currently experiencing the largest wealth transfer in history. So um, the baby boomers have about half of America's wealth right now, and they are looking at over the next 30 years passing that down to mostly their Gen X and millennial children. There is a significant chunk of it that's set aside for charities, which is really exciting as well. So hopefully or understanding how to effectively pass that and receive that wealth is really essential. Whether you're on the giving or receiving side, you want to do it in the best way possible so that your intentions are being carried out. So about $84 trillion is the estimate of what is being held in retirement accounts as well as other investments. 72 trillion of that is set aside for to be passed down to the next generations. And of course, those are estimates, but this is a significant amount of money, and so that's why we're dedicating some time to it today. Why it's so important to dedicate some time in your life and in your personal families to talking about this and figuring out the best course of action for you. So let's talk about first accumulating that wealth. So again, it doesn't matter at what stage of life you are, whether you're a boomer, millennial, Gen Xer, accumulating wealth can still be done. And there have been changes to some laws recently, specifically with traditional IRAs. If you have earned income, you can still contribute. So it's exciting that you're never too old to accumulate more wealth. And there's some ways that you can do that. So let's talk about some common strategies for accumulating this wealth. There's a few strategies that you may have heard of and that we'll go into a little bit of detail in. So the first is the match and out or match and max strategy. And that is where you take your 401k, and if you have a employer match, you need to take 100% advantage of that. That is the best investment you can make, right? That's 100%, or sometimes they'll do 4% match, and then that last percent they'll give you 0.5% if you do one. If you do up to 5%, whatever that deal is, it's a good investment, right? You're doubling your money. So we always recommend that you take that, and then but then not necessarily only relying on your 401k. 401ks are a vital part of retirement planning. However, they are not the only thing out there. So looking at IRAs is another really good option. So again, if you're doing the match and out approach, then you would match your 401k, then you would max out your IRA. So figuring out that contribution limit, we'll go into that in a little bit later. And then moving on, if you still have more room in your budget that you can contribute, looking at an HSA if you can. HSAs, you do have to qualify for them, so not everybody can have one, but they are really phenomenal if you can. They also have contribution maxes that we'll go over later, and you can max that out, and then you can still invest that HSA money, which is just like you would with an IRA. And so those can end up earning you a lot of money as well, and you're able to take distributions from them as well eventually, or you can use them and get a great tax break on medical things. So then if at that point, if you've matched your 401k, you've maxed your IRA, and you've maxed your HSA, then go back to your 401k, because those do have higher max or higher contribution limits, and you can get to that point as well. So that's kind of a way to make sure that you're utilizing all of your resources. And then another strategy is the bucket strategy. And for the bucket strategy, you essentially have these 3 buckets, and they can be literal or figurative. I mean, I guess they're all figurative, unless if you really are keeping your money in a bucket. But that's one of the great things about credit unions, is that you can open up multiple savings accounts. And so, but you can have a bucket for emergencies. That's going to be if your child needs to run to the emergency room, if you get in a car crash, or if just an expense that you weren't expecting pops up. And then you have your midterm or near future bucket, and that's going to be for the things like planning a vacation, planning Christmas time or a birthday. And then, of course, you have your long terms, and that's going to be more of like buying a car with cash, a down payment for a home, things like that. So, and then the last one that we're going to talk about today is just focusing on paying off debt before you save. What's really great about this one is that if you're super committed, you can save really quickly. And so that it has high risk, high reward. I've heard a lot of people use paying off debt as an excuse for not saving for their retirement, and that's not very good either. But if you're planning on paying off your debt in like 18 months, if you're using something like the snowball payoff method, where you're using all of the money that you were spending on previous cards to pay off future cards, and then at the end of that you have this availability in your budget of, however X many dollars, then you can start putting that towards saving, and that can be really powerful, and your lifestyle won't take a hit. But if you're thinking that you're going to be in debt for a significantly longer amount of time, that might not be the best plan, because we never want to delay saving for retirement, because time is your greatest asset when you're saving for retirement. So the more that you can contribute now, the better it's going to be in your future. Even if you're near retirement age, it's still, my parents are 65 and 67, and they're, they still have 30 years that they're going to live, at least hopefully. And so those investments can grow for all of that time, and that's a big deal. So, but you can also use these saving strategies together, or pieces of each of them. So don't feel like you're locked into one, however you want to make your savings plan is great. So I did mention that we would talk about contribution limits. So let's get into that. Savings money market CDs, those are really easy accounts to get. They're really easy accounts to have and to cultivate. And there's typically no limits on those. So you can have a money market or a CD that's as high as the sky, whatever you're able to save. CDs do often have, so same with money markets, typically they do have a minimum amount to get in. And then usually you're able to access this money fairly easily. So because of those portability benefits, sometimes the return on investment isn't as good, but these are always very, very secure. So when it comes to planning or growing your wealth, making sure that you have a diversified portfolio can be really important. And so I would say that savings, money markets, and CDs are a pivotal part to any savings plan or savings portfolio, but they certainly shouldn't be the only thing that you're investing in. IRAs, their limit is $7,000 this year. It did not change from last year, so that contribution limit is still $7,000. And then, of course, if you're age 50 or older, then you can do that $1,000 catch-up contribution. So for some people, the limit is $8,000. We always recommend that you talk to a tax advisor if there's any question on limits or what you can contribute. The other thing to remember with IRAs is that it doesn't matter how many IRAs or what type of IRAs you have. That limit covers all IRA. The government sees you as having one IRA even if you have 5. So if you have an IRA at Fidelity and IRA at USSFCU, then the government still only sees you as having one, and you can only contribute $7,000 total, and you can divide that up however you want. And then 401k limits, like I mentioned earlier, are a bit higher. So the employee contribution portion of that can be $23,500. What's really great, and those did go up from last year. What's really great about 401k limits is that your employer contribution isn't going to hurt your personal contribution typically. So employer and employee together, you can contribute up to $70,000, unless if you're age 50 or older, where you have that extra $7,500. So again, there's no reason to not accept that employer contribution. It's worth sacrificing in order to maximize that benefit. And then HSA limits, it depends on your insurance plan. You do have to qualify for an HSA via your insurance plan. If you are an individual, and you can contribute up to 4,300. But if you're covering your whole family, then you get to go up to that 8,550. And then they have a catch-up contribution as well, and that's for age 55 plus. Now I know that a lot of people get nervous about HSA plans because they'll either get them confused with FSAs, where those expire at the end of the year. And so with an FSA, you really don't want to put in more than what you're going to spend in a year. HSAs are not like that. They carry over year to year. The other nice thing about the HSA is, let's say that you've been contributing to your HSA, and then the next year you got a different insurance plan and you no longer are eligible for an HSA, then you still get to keep that old HSA. You can't contribute to it anymore, but you can still utilize it for medical expenses. You can still invest with it, all of that good stuff. That is still your money in your name, and you are still getting tax benefits off of that. So they're a really, really great account to have. Also, I know, like, so ideally you're going to use them on like medical expenses, but there are so many opportunities out there to use them in different ways. As far as what qualifies as a medical expense, for instance, like Band-Aids are something that you can buy on the HSA. Amazon has a whole section on HSA eligible items, and like that can be really fun just to scroll through. I know for Christmas one year I wanted to pad my Christmas budget, and so I looked at HSA items. I got my kids stuffed animals with rice in them as heaters, and they love them. So there's a lot of things that fit on there. So let's talk about investing your wealth. IRAs in particular, a lot of money is being left on the table because people don't realize that opening an IRA and contributing to it isn't enough. You have to invest your IRAs. Same thing with 401ks, but typically your job takes care of it. And HSAs also typically have to be manually invested. So make sure that when you are contributing, you're also figuring out what you want to be invested in, and that investment is working for you. So you can put IRAs can be invested in CDs, they can be invested in stocks, they can be invested in bonds, and then there's a whole world of self-directed alternative investments out there. So I've heard of people investing in properties and rental properties, Airbnbs. I've heard of people doing cryptocurrency and gold. So there's a lot of options out there. So there's an investment for you, but it is worth taking some time and figuring out what you want to invest your funds in. We highly, highly recommend talking to a financial advisor or a financial planner. Here at USSFCU, we work with fellows, and they're a great resource. Most of those people are free to you. They get kickbacks from the investment. So another big roadblock that I've seen is that people are afraid that they don't have enough money to invest with. And typically, if that's the situation, they'll still work up a financial plan. They'll tell you how much you need to start investing, things like that. And it gives you a good goal to work towards. But it's never too soon to meet with one of those educated professionals, because ultimately we want you to get ahead and we want your money to work for you. So some other benefits of investing your wealth are combating inflation is a big one. If you are sticking your money into a savings account and it's earning 1% interest, you're probably not keeping up with inflation. So, and if you're not investing in even that, you're definitely not keeping up with inflation. So at the bare minimum, investing is so important just to make sure that your money is at least worth what it was when you put it in. And then beyond that, compound interest is such a big deal. When I was researching for this presentation today, I heard an interesting soundbite of a gentleman saying that it's way easier to make $1 million a month than it is to make $1 million a year. Compound interest and passive income is how you're able to do that. So you do not need to earn every dollar that you live on in retirement. As long as you're wise with your investments, then your money can work for you, and that's how the people who are able to pass on wealth are typically able to have so much, is that once you get that momentum, it can really grow. And then passive income, things like rental properties, there's so many sources, especially if you look at like small business type of passive incomes. Having something along those lines can really, really help whether that's inside a retirement plan or outside of a retirement plan, but you typically have options for both. And not everybody knows that. Not everybody knows that you can invest in something within your IRA that can generate passive income. So and then of course, reaching those financial goals. Whatever those financial goals are is totally fine. I definitely encourage you to be really honest with yourself with what those financial goals are. Are you wanting to live in like a better lifestyle, the same lifestyle? What are you wanting to leave on to the next generation? What are you wanting to leave to charity? And what are you willing to do to get those goals? If your goal is to live really well in retirement and you're willing to live really simply now, that's great. If you want to make sure that your needs are met and that you're enjoying your life now as well, then that just might look a little differently. But again, meeting with a financial advisor is such a good way to figure out how to get those goals. And then we've already talked about this quite a bit, but options, CDs, savings account, real estate investments, alternative investments. There really is so much out there. And what's so great nowadays is that you can watch videos on YouTube, a quick Google search. There are so many ways to find these investments. And also just speaking to your financial advisor, they are so up to date on what is popular, what's worked for other people, what's kind of on its way out, what's on its way in, all of that good stuff. So you do not need to rely on your own understanding. There are resources out there for you. And I know it can be kind of overwhelming to start, and that's hopefully what we're accomplishing in this presentation is knowing where to start and what your next move is. So just decide, you can take a moment and decide what resource you want to tap into first, and use that to kind of figure out where you want to start looking at for your investments. Okay, and so next we're going to talk about using your wealth. So we obviously you're saving this money not only to pass on to the next generation, but to make sure that you're comfortable at in your golden years. So distributions with IRAs can get a little bit tricky. So that's why I want to take a little bit of extra time just to talk about them specifically. So typically, if you are age 59 and a half or older, you are able to take out your contributions pretty easily. There are obviously some exceptions that can happen before that. Education is one of them, a first-time home purchase, medical expenses, things like that. So it's worth it to talk to a tax advisor if you're younger than 59 and a half and need funds from your IRA. Excuse me, if you can avoid that, that's obviously best. But so the other things to keep in mind with a traditional IRA, no matter what age you are, when you take money out, you're going to pay taxes because you got that tax benefit up front. And so you are not being penalized. It's not bad for you to take it out if you have to pay taxes. Typically, a traditional IRA is going to be better for you if you're going to be in a lower tax bracket when it's time to take that distribution. So if you are at the top of your career and you are making probably the majority of the money or the highest salary that you're most likely going to make, then a traditional IRA is great because you're probably going to be making a lot less income in your retirement. But otherwise, I typically say Roth is better. Roth is also better if you have a lot of time on your side because you put already taxed money into your Roth IRA, and then when you go to take it out, you don't have to pay taxes on it as long as you do it right. And so when that's the case, then all of those earnings grew tax-free. So again, if you have time on your hand and that your investments are doing well and you have earnings, you never have to pay taxes on that as long as you are taking that distribution after you're 59 and a half. But the other trick to Roths is that you have to have them for 5 years. So if you are thinking about opening a Roth, it's better to do it now, put $100 in it and forget about it until you're ready to actually deal with it than it is to wait until you're ready and start contributing and opening it. And right now is an extra good time. This is a little trade secret for you. If you make a prior year contribution, the 5-year clock starts January 1st of 2024. So you can open a Roth IRA today, make a prior year contribution of any amount, and your Roth IRA counts as being open January 1st of 2024. So get that, you get a year, you get an extra year in, or an extra, or 1 year less that you have to worry about. So if you're worried about the 5-year clock at all, that's a good strategy. And then the other thing to talk about with distributions when it comes to your IRAs is that once you turn 73, it will eventually move up to 75. Then you have to start minimum distributions. That is only for traditional IRAs. Roth IRAs do not have RMDs. So that's another benefit to the Roth. And then once a minimum RMD starts, it's non-reversible. Like once you have to start taking it, it has to be taken out every year. So there's that. And then lastly, and we already kind of covered this, but with HSAs, you can use it at any time for medical and medically related expenses. And I know that medical expenses can be a huge burden in after retirement. I know that getting insurance can not always be the most fun thing. And then also being able to choose the treatments that you want and how you want. So this is a great thing. I honestly don't think that you can have too much money in an HSA. And again, there are ways to take it out. Just talk to a tax advisor first. And I know we've been saying talk to a tax advisor a ton. I am not a qualified tax advisor. And so I just want it to be abundantly clear that each situation is unique, and you should talk to a tax advisor, a qualified tax advisor who knows your situation and can make sure that you are getting the best service, the best options for your situation. But if you're wanting to do some research, the IRS website is actually very good when it comes to IRAs. It answers a lot of questions for us often, and it's fairly searchable. So that's another little resource that you can use. And then I just wanted to talk about charitable distributions again. A significant chunk of money is intended to go to charitable distributions. They're also a good tax benefit. If you are taking out RMDs, we have a lot of members who will give it to a charity if they don't need it, and then they get that as a tax break. So with a charitable distribution, that does need to be made out a certain way. So I know that we've had members in the past asked to do charitable distributions, and we ask that you work with somebody in the IRA department directly. And we have a special form for it. It's just because that check needs to be made out very specifically. It needs to be made out to the charity. And then at the end of the year, we will issue you a normal 1099-R, just as we would anybody who took a distribution, charitable or not. And then you need to match that with a receipt or a form from that charity. And that's how you prove to the government that it was a charitable distribution. So know that that's an option in your corner, especially if you're somebody who pays like a church tithe or something along those lines. You were going to pay that anyway, and you might as well get the tax break. So there's that. And then another trick of the trade is financial gifts. Right now, the gift tax limit is $19,000, and that means that you can give that to any of your relatives. It's per Social Security number. So if you have a daughter and a son-in-law and you want to give them $19,000 each, then that's fine. Even though it's going to the same household, it's going to different socials. So, and then that way that's non-reportable, and there's no taxes that are required on that. Again, you're going to want to talk to tax advisor about that. Not just trust my word. So, and there's some really fun benefits of giving that money now. You get to see your wealth enjoyed by those that you love most. You also get to have some control over it. I know my grandfather loved doing this. And then he would tell my mom and her sister exactly what they had to buy. And he loved that. So my mom got her barn paid in part by her dad. And then he loved going and sitting in the barn with his buddies, and we would pull up after being in town for a little while, and we would see my grandpa and his buddies in the barn just hanging out. So and we loved it. We loved him coming over. So anyway, and so but especially if you're worried about having too much wealth, or you're worried about your children having to pay like taxes and things on it, that's a great way to diminish your wealth while you're still living. But again, make sure that you're completely taken care of, and have what you need before you start giving. And then the next thing that we want to talk about today is just communicating your plans. It can be really, really difficult in a lot of families and a lot of cultures to discuss end of life, and then also on top of that, the complexities of talking about money and finances. And so we do just have a couple of tips for you. First of all, even though it's hard, it can be really, really necessary. In my career in banking, there have been so many times that I've had people coming in just in tears, mourning the loss of a loved one, and then also just having no idea what the heck they're doing. And they have bills to pay, they have funeral costs, and it's an unsavory topic, and we know that. But there's a couple ways to handle it, I think, that can make it a little bit easy. One, keep it simple. I know that my dad hates talking about money. And so, when I talk to him about stuff, I make sure I don't ask for balances. I don't ask, exactly what he has laid out in the will. I ask, do you have a will or do you have a trust? I ask, which banks is he utilizing? I don't ask for his passwords. I ask, where are your passwords kept? That kind of thing. So you don't have to get into the details. You also don't necessarily have to tell your children anything, but at that point, you might want to consider a binder or a file on your computer that we have listed here under Stay Organized. Use an in case I die binder. My family has a family binder that's quickly shifting to an in case I die as our life gets more complicated. And there are so many resources out there to help you with this. There are free pages that you can download off the internet and websites. You can go to Etsy and they'll have really cute designed ones. I even saw in the TikTok shop that you can get a literal in case I die binder. So if that's really overwhelming to you, it has been to me, and we've just printed off a couple pages a week, and then we've tried to gather that stuff, and we just are trying to eat that elephant one bite at a time. So it's definitely worth it. You don't want to delay it. So think about that kind of stuff. And then that way you don't have to have those. If those conversations just are really unwelcomed or really hard, if it is all in a binder, the only conversation you have to have is, hey, this is where all my stuff is kept. And then of course, if you want to just maintain digital and physical records, it's all good. Just have a plan, have a system in place, and then to communicate what you need to. Of course, if you're open to talking about everything with your children, if that's the kind of relationship and that's safe for you to do, please do. But also just make sure that you're protecting yourself during that time, and that you're not sharing information that could come back to not benefit you. So let's talk about beneficiaries. So we're going to talk specifically about beneficiaries, wills, and trusts, and starting off with beneficiaries. Beneficiaries are the easiest things to make sure that your money goes where you want it to. So beneficiaries can go on checking accounts, savings accounts, CDs, retirement accounts, HSAs, life insurance. There are so many. Most accounts with money attached to them can have a beneficiary listed. Beneficiaries override wills. And so if you have a will, the bank will go off of, or the financial institution will go off of the beneficiary that they have on file. The other thing to know about beneficiaries is that you can set up a trust as a beneficiary. So that's a really good option too, but I would highly, highly recommend, I would challenge you to make sure that every single one of your accounts that can have a beneficiary does. It makes a huge difference. Now, I know a lot of parents, especially after a spouse dies, they will add their child onto the account, and that's totally fine too if that's a relationship you have, and still have beneficiaries, but your secondary on that account will not overrule. A beneficiary is not needed because you have a secondary on the account. Before you pass away, a beneficiary is not even allowed from our end to know that they're a beneficiary. So if your child comes into USSFCU and says, hey, am I a beneficiary in my mom's account? We can't tell them. We can't tell them yes or no. We can't tell them who is on the account. So if you are somebody who values their privacy, beneficiaries do not give them any opportunity to close in on that privacy. So there's no risk, but again, it helps a lot when after somebody passes away, it's a quicker access to funds than going through the will and the trust process sometimes. And then also when it comes to beneficiaries, wills, and trusts, they can all kind of work together. You can do 2 out of 3, you can do 1 out of 3, whatever is best for you. You're going to want to reach out to a lawyer or well, for wills and trusts, you're definitely going to want to reach out to a lawyer and go through that. So let's talk about trust versus wills. So with a trust, it's typically better for larger estates. You have more privacy with a trust. And then there's also, you have more control options. So if you want really specific things to go to really specific people, if you want money to only be given after the child is 30 or married or whatever clauses you want to throw in there, you have so much more option with that trust. And then there's also some added tax benefits. For those, you're going to want to talk to a lawyer, not a tax advisor or a financial advisor. And then wills are simpler. They're a little bit more cost effective and they're better for smaller estates. They're also better if you have minor children. So in a trust, you cannot list guardianship over your children. So if you still have children under the age of 18 living in your care, you are gonna want to get a will together. As somebody with children under the age of 18 and not an abundance of extra funds, wills really don't have to be that expensive. There are some reliable online options that you're easily able to set up that are valid. So that is worth a look as well. And then, okay, so now let's talk about receiving that wealth. So as the receiver of that transfer of wealth, this is kind of your section here. So when it comes to inheriting an IRA specifically, it depends on your relationship to the deceased, what your options are. They did that so that because you can name quite a few things as a beneficiary of your IRA. Obviously your spouse is going to have the most options. And a lot of this is just based on age or typical age, I guess. And so your spouse is going to have the most options. And then eligible beneficiaries, and then there's beneficiaries, and then there are like non-person beneficiaries. So if you do end up leaving your IRA to a charity, that's great. They have just different options. So for instance, everybody can take a lump sum. Because wealth is taxable income, a lot of people get really nervous about taking it as a lump sum, or it might not be the wisest choice to take those funds as a lump sum because it might put you in a tax bracket that you don't want to be in. Most everybody has a 10-year option. Non-person beneficiaries, such as charities, that's only a 5-year option, but most charities don't have to worry about lump sum not working out for them. And then the spouse has a few extra options, such as taking on that IRA as their own, and they're usually also able to take life expectancy payments. So, and then another thing when receiving wealth, I know a lot of people in my generation, a lot of my friends are saying, oh, all I'm going to inherit from my parents is debt. Debt is not inheritable. If you are on the debt with them, let's say that with your father, you are a co-signer on his auto loan, sure, you can inherit that. You'll also inherit the vehicle. But if your parents are just in massive amounts of debt, you won't inherit it per se. Now, with that being said, again, you're going to want to talk to a tax advisor or a lawyer because sometimes debt companies will still come after you. Also, if they have a house or assets, those will be expected to be used to pay off the debt. So that's kind of a convoluted area. And again, you're going to want to talk to a tax advisor, lawyer, things like that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, wealth is taxable income. So there are people like our partners at Fellows are so good at figuring out the best way to make it so that you can keep the most of your parents' hard-earned income. So there are people who dedicate their life to making sure that you can get the most bang for your buck. And so utilize the experts. You're dealing with enough in these events typically. Let somebody help you out. So for a lot of us, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to get, a lump sum or access to a lump sum of income. And so, you want to definitely make sure that you're using it that'll fulfill your financial goals. I always say do not count on it though. I have seen so many times when somebody thought that they were going to get something from a relative and then they didn't, for one reason or another. And sometimes there's a lot of hurt feelings about it, but sometimes it makes sense. So, also I've seen where people, had a second chance at dealing with a diagnosis, but it was a test, a medical situation and it ended up being very expensive and they just didn't have what they wanted to pass on. So never ever count on it. But in the event that you do get it, I always recommend paying off your debt first. The interest charged on debt is never ever going to be cheaper than the investment or a rate of return. So you're going to pay 20 to 30% on most credit cards. And it's going to be very, very difficult to find an investment that gives you 20 to 30%. So, pay that off, keep it off, do what you need to do, change your lifestyle. But you do not want to have a bunch of money in the bank and a bunch of debt in as well, because it's just going to end up costing you more in the long run. So, and then next, I always recommend building an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses. Obviously, 3 to 6 months can be a significantly different number. How you determine 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months is based on your lifestyle. Things to consider are how volatile your job is, how reliable your job is, how reliable your industry is. Whether you're the only one bringing income in, if your partner is a stay-at-home partner, or if they're a part-time employee. And then also, an interesting one that I have run into a couple times is the area that you live in. If you're living in a more rural area, you may not have as many opportunities to make the same income. And if that's the case, you're going to want to plan for longer, especially if you're open to a potential move. Because even if you're able to find a job before that 6 months is up, moving can be very expensive. So just factor in all of that and then do whatever makes you feel comfortable. Also, if you're a really anxious person or really anxious about money in particular, save more. It's okay. Like you should save as much as will make you feel comfortable, help you feel financially free, help you take opportunities that come your way, all that other stuff. And then my last recommendation is investing it. You can invest in Roth IRAs and real estate, other options that are out there. I heard of one person who inherited some money from his parents. He ended up getting a loan on a fourplex. For a lot of times when you're investing in rental properties, you have to have like 50% down. So he was able to put 50% down and or 30 to 50%. And anyway, so he was able to put a significant portion down, and then he lived in one of the fourplexes and then collected the rent from the other three and just paid that sucker off real fast before, going on to the next investment. So there's a lot of creative ways that you can invest, and that can be really great. Also, by all means, enjoy the money. I know that sometimes my husband's grandfather ended up paying for his entire family to go on a cruise instead of a funeral. And that was just such a beautiful, fun way to honor him and to remember him. And I know other people will buy a piece of jewelry that reminds them of their mom. Whatever the case may be, that is totally fine. Just make sure that what you're doing is in proportion to what your financial dreams and goals are. So just to go over a quick summary or checklist, I guess, if you are the giver, what we're hoping that you got out of this presentation is that you are going to create an accumulation plan. You're going to make sure that your accounts are working for you. You're going to live well in your retirement. You're going to dedicate some time to estate planning, and you're going to work with a lawyer or tax advisor. and being open to having those conversations with your children. And then as the receiver, your guys' jobs are to initiate those conversations about financial planning. You guys are going to seek professional advice once you do receive that wealth, and you're going to develop a thoughtful plan for using inherited assets. And then just to give you a couple of resources, I know I've mentioned our partners at Fellows. Michael Shamel is our main guy over there, and he is so good. I've talked to him many times, and he is so thorough and intelligent, and he really listens to what you need. So I highly recommend reaching out to him to schedule that consultation. And he, like I mentioned earlier, he looks at the whole picture for you. So if you just want him to look at like retirement accounts and whatnot, by all means. But if you're wanting a bigger picture of all of your finances, if you're wanting a long-term, short-term goal, he can cover all of it for you. So. And then another really great resource is Retirement Central. This is on our website. It's in two places. If you go to our website, you can get it just from the main page. Also, once you're logged into online banking, it's on there now as well. And Retirement Central is so great for operating your a retirement account with us if you're wanting to make like a contribution or anything like that. Especially right now, we're in contribution season because we're doing prior year and current year contributions. So great resource there. But even more than that, we partner with Ascensus, who is one of the biggest companies in the retirement industry. And they actually help us keep up our Retirement Central page. So in fact, when you go to it, sometimes you have to click, you're going to a third-party website. That's not spam, that's not fraud. That is the right place. But they make sure that all of our, you can see it right there on the screen, planning tools, all of our planning tools are up to date. So when any numbers change, when the contribution limit changes, whatever the case may be, it is immediately updated. They have so many lawyers and people working on their team to make sure that we are 100% accurate and compliant on this website. So, but they have information on the different types of IRAs. They have calculators. They have all sorts of really, really good information. So if you are just not knowing anything about IRAs, this is an excellent, secure place to learn. And that's available to you at all times. Also, I am available at least from 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. So here's my information. There's my phone number. If you want to email us, you can email us at iraservices@ussfcu.org. It's right now our IRA department also includes my right hand Candace Davis, and she might also be responding in those emails. But she is so thorough. She's so passionate about IRAs and IRA education. So if you guys ever need us at all for anything retirement based, we are your people. And with that, that's what I have.
Hey, Madison, thank you so much. What a wonderful presentation. We truly, truly appreciate you taking your time. We know you're a busy person, especially during this season. But again, it just goes to show everyone the commitment that the United States Center for Credit Union has for its members. And we really hope that you taken something out of this presentation. I mean, I know Madison covers so many different areas and a lot of great information that we hope that you can take back and put it in place right away. So with that being said, I know we want to be mindful of everyone's time. I've been told that we have quite a few questions on the chat and also on the Q&A. So I don't want to take too much time away from Kim and Carrie. If you all want to go ahead and start reading those questions, and Madison can go ahead and take a shot. If we don't have an answer for you today, we will try to get it to you as soon as possible, but it is our commitment to try to answer everything that you sent us this evening. So again, thank you all.
Thank you, Milton. Excellent job, Addison. I even learned some new things myself. Excellent webinar. We do have quite a few, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the first question, and I just want to say, excellent questions. Thank you so much for being engaged. First question, can you give recommendations on the amounts for each bucket listed, either percent or dollars? The buckets listed included emergencies, midterm, and long-term goal.
Yeah, so it definitely is going to depend on how much income you have and how much you're saving. A lot of people recommend $1,000 for an emergency fund, especially if you also have a 3 to 6 month savings set aside. $1,000 is probably a little light. If 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 you don't have extra savings to back you up. I think that the first goal is to decide how much of your income you're going to save. So if you're going to decide that you save a lot, most financial people recommend 15% if you can, and I think 10% is a lot of times more realistic. So anywhere in that 10 to 15. So let's say you did 12. I would say, or let's say you did 10%, I would say to put $5,000 into an emergency savings and not worry about it, and then split, depending on your goals, depending on what you have planned, 5% in each of the other buckets. And again, that's really fixated on what your lifestyle is. If you've already purchased your home, 5 and 5 is probably pretty good. If you are really wanting to save for a home, or if you're really wanting to save for a vehicle, or you have children that you're wanting to put through college, then maybe do 7 and 3, 7 towards long-term goals. If you are, wanting to make sure that your family gets to travel and see all the United States or go to Europe, maybe make that more even. So it's really up to you in your situation, but that's kind of where I would start.
Great answer. Thank you. The next question, how do you know if you qualify for an HSA account?
Yeah, great question. So you need to be in a high deductible insurance plan. So 9 times out of 10, it's pretty obvious when you're going to sign up for your insurance plan. It'll say like high deductible insurance plan, or it'll even be called the HSA option, but your HR people will know. Or just revisit your insurance documents that you, especially this time of year, a lot of us just renewed our insurance plans. A lot of that was decided in like October. So just review the documents that you submitted when you selected your plan, and it should say somewhere in there. But again, reach out to your HR department.
Thank you so much. Next question for the IRA, 401k, and HSA. This is only for earned income, correct?
Yeah, so in order to be able to contribute to a IRA and 401k, you have to have earned income. With an HSA, you have to have a high deductible insurance plan. So once you're retired, it's pretty hard to have a high deductible insurance plan, because you're probably going to be on, you're either going to be purchasing private insurance or on, I always get Medicare and Medicaid mixed up, but the one. And so
Okay.
you've probably lost that opportunity if you're past that age. But I know if you are doing a part-time job, I know like, people who are bored in retirement, and so they go and they just get like a little part-time job. And a lot of times they're only making a few $1,000s a year, and that's fine. And you can contribute whatever you make up to 7,000 or 8,000 if you're over the age of 50. So if you have a little part-time job and you make $6,000 in a year, you can contribute up to 6,000. If you are retired and you're not making anything, then you cannot keep contributing.
Thank you, Madison. Next question, does converting a traditional IRA money to a Roth IRA have the same 5-year conversion fee associated with it?
That's a great question, and I'm not 100% sure. That's one that you'd want to talk to a tax advisor about. I always recommend with a conversion talking to a tax advisor first, because that process can be so tax heavy, and you want to make sure that you're doing it right. So make sure, because a lot of people will try just to convert their whole thing, their whole traditional funds, and then they get hit really hard with the taxes. So I would highly recommend just getting a tax advisor involved anyway if you're considering the conversion. And I believe that the 5-year clock starts as soon as you open up the IRA. So even though those funds have been in retirement accounts for longer, that doesn't necessarily mean that clock has been going on for longer.
Thank you. Another if you don't have a financial advisor, that would be a great question for you to ask fellows. I actually put the link in the chat option. Next question. When you discuss financial gifts, does this affect your taxes?
So that's what that limit was. So it's 19,000 right now. That goes up fairly often. All of these limits go up, are reviewed annually, and they can go up to annually. So right now it's 19,000. And if you are at 19,000 or less, then it does not trigger any tax consequences. If you go over that, then it starts to. It starts counting as income.
Thank you. Next question. What is the recommendation for the TSP after you leave government service? Should you roll it into your other money, use it in your self-directed IRAs?
Yeah, so I would I'd schedule an appointment with fellows. TSPs are really interesting. They're good programs. And so there's nothing wrong with you leaving it there. I know you can leave it there. But if you're somebody, so some people really like to have all their money together in one pot. It makes it easier to track all of that good stuff. Also, it makes it easier to invest. So if that's you, if you want to bring it all together, by all means, please do. But it's definitely not in a bad place where it's at. So again, totally up to you, but I would highly, highly recommend talking to fellows or another financial advisor so that they can look at that with all of your other money and make a good plan for you going forward.
Thank you, Madison. Next question. Can a trust be set up to give a certain amount of money to children? For an example, a certain amount at different ages, like 25, 30.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, you can do all sorts of different clauses in there. Some people, so age is a huge one. Marriage can be a really common one. Graduating from college can be a really big one. Some people will put in like whoever takes care of their pets gets extra money. So with a trust, you have so much more control, and you're going to need to talk to a lawyer about it. There are specific trust lawyers who that's most of what they do. And they can get into all that nitty-gritty with you, but you can get pretty specific from my understanding.
Thank you. Next question. Does a beneficiary to a CD need to be in a trust? For example, I have a 5-year CD that is in year number 2. Can that CD be added to a trust? Does it even need to be?
Up to you completely. Again, I recommend having a beneficiary on there, but whether that's a trust or a specific child, or if you have 3 children, giving, each one 33% and then picking your favorite to give 34% to, totally your call. Most people who go to the trouble of having a trust just list their trust as beneficiary on all accounts. That's the simplest way to do it. That's the way to make sure that everything's covered and following exactly what you want. But if you have like one account that you just don't want in your trust, go ahead and just put in a regular beneficiary, and that's fine.
Thank you. Next question. Did you mention where or what type of IRA to save for emergencies?
So I would not save money in an IRA. If you take out your funds in an IRA early, there can be penalties and taxes and all sorts of things. So, the best way to keep an emergency savings is in a money market specifically. I also would not put your emergency savings in a CD. You need it accessible, because the whole point is that when your car breaks down, you can get them that money when they're fixing it. So you don't want your emergency money saved in an IRA or in any type of account that holds it or locks it. That's the other reason to maybe keep it at $1,000 or $5,000, whatever number you decide with your family. Is because you're not going to earn the best return on it. You're relying on that accessibility. For your midterm goals, that's going to be best in your CDs, things like that. Excuse me, IRAs are specifically designed for retirement, as are 401ks. And so use those for your long-term goals. As I mentioned in the slide, there are some exceptions. You can get that money out a little bit early, for medical, for education. It doesn't even have to be your education. It can be your children's education. So there are exceptions, but in my experience, it's so hard to get money into those accounts a lot of times. It's better if you can save for those outside of those accounts a lot of the times. So it's an option for you, but keep the money that you need access to in accounts that you can access.
Thank you so much. I just want to mention and shout out, say hello to Mr. Ken. He actually put, I use short-term and long-term CDs for my emergency fund. That keeps us from using it on things that are not emergencies. That is wonderful, wonderful experience and advice.
That is really great because short-term CDs have a lower penalty as well. So if that's the best way for you to use that money in a secure for you way, then by all means, that's a good tip.
Thank you. Next question, what are the fees for fellows?
So my understanding is that Fellows does not charge you a fee for talking to them. You can do a free consultation with them at any time. How wealth advisors typically get their pay is from kickbacks from those investments. So they put the onus of being paid on the investments, not on you.
That is correct. I think what Madison said, with us fellows, does not charge you. You can have a conversation, a meeting with Michael, and you can actually go to our website and you can see Michael's calendar on the website as well too, and it's completely free.
Yeah.
Highly encourage you to give Michael a quick call or to set up a meeting.
Excellent. Thank you both. I'm going to answer this next one and give her a little bit of a break. And we so appreciate these questions. They're excellent.
They are very good.
Does Fellows do retirement planning? Absolutely, they do. And then you also asked, do they charge fees? And we just addressed that question. So next question. Hope that gave you a little bit of a breather. Are you taxed on only the amount over the $19,000 limit?
That's my understanding. Again, you're going to want to talk to a tax advisor. I cannot give tax advice. So my understanding is that, yeah, the first 19,000 is tax-free.
We have another great suggestion from Tony. High yield savings account for emergency fund. Again, we offer money markets, short-term CDs. Give us a call. We'll help you with those to get that emergency fund set up. Next question. Can the name on a CD that is open be changed to put into a trust?
The beneficiary name, I'm assuming?
Yes.
You can change your beneficiaries whenever you want, as often as you want. Come in, call in, whatever is most convenient for you, and you can change those as often as you want. Also, a lot of times people get nervous about setting beneficiaries because we have to have like a lot of information. That's not true. We need the name, and then any information beyond that is really great cherries on top. So don't feel like you can't set somebody as your beneficiary because you don't know their social security number. We might ask for it if you have it, and that's great, but if you don't, it's not a big deal. So feel free to come in and change your beneficiaries, confirm that you have beneficiaries at any time.
So let me ask this question differently because I think I may have answered it and I asked it wrong. Can the name on a CD that is open be changed into the trust name?
Oh, no. Typically not. So you're going to, it's still going to be in your name, but you're going to set the beneficiary as the trust. And then as soon as, heaven forbid that you pass away, then that'll immediately be absorbed by the trust. And then the CD will be in the trust name. But a CD has to be owned by a person.
Great
Sorry,
answer.
Go ahead, Milton. Okay. Will the United States Senate Federal Credit Union be offering HSA accounts?
That is not in our near future, but who knows? Maybe some time down the line. But typically you can get them through your employer. And then typically, but if not, if you're wanting an HSA that you can invest with, not all employers have that option. So at that point, you would just want to find an institution that does offer that. And there are some really good ones out there.
Thank you so much. And you're so welcome, Mr. Ken. It's so good to have you on the webinar. Just another comment from Tony, and it's very valuable. Tony says, my 2 cents. If you are married, both you and your spouse can gift $19,000 without tax consequence. So thank you so much for that. And I do believe that the questions in the chat are, hopefully we got them all. If not, please feel free to ask it again and I'll make sure we get it answered. And Carrie is gonna take over the Q&A questions. So thank you all.
All right. Madison, do you have any advice if you're already retired and taking RMDs?
Yeah, so if you're already taking your RMD, then I do highly, and you don't need it, I highly recommend charitable distributions. You can do so much good in this world. At the top of this conversation, we were talking about the fires in California, and there's so many honorable and necessary charities out there. And then the gifting as well. If you're really not needing it, pass it along to the next generation. I know a lot of people will pay for their grandchildren's schools, or if they're really passionate about education, you can also take it and you can start investing it in non-retirement accounts. So if you are taking out RMDs, you can still invest in real estate and rental properties, whatever the case may be. You can absolutely invest in those things outside of your IRA just as easily as, if not more easily, than in your IRA. If you're still wanting it to make money for you.
Thank you. Can you discuss the best practices around inherited IRAs?
Yeah, so inherited IRAs are kind of a little bit of a beast on their own. So I honestly, I would talk to a financial advisor to see if it's even the best option for you. A lot of times, with inherited IRAs, if you're in the position where you want to keep it as an inherited, you're probably wanting to take it out as in small chunks as possible. And so just keep on that plan. But really, I would talk to a tax advisor. If it works, if it's a good thing for you, then by all means do it. But if not, there's other, you can take the distributions. You can, if you're a spouse, you can make it your own. And sometimes that's easier, especially if you're the younger spouse. It's better if you take it on as your own. So if you're in the position of accepting an inherited IRA, just immediately, they're so complicated, get with a tax advisor.
Thanks, Madison. Is it better tax-wise to donate via an RMD rather than a direct donation?
That's a great question, and I'm not a tax advisor, so I can't speak directly to it. What I can speak to is the advantage of doing it as making a charitable donation directly from your RMD is that money, or like you take away that income. So if you're not needing that money anyway, then it's a good way to take that money without having to pay taxes on it. So that's where the main tax benefit from an IRA perspective is coming from. But as far as like your whole picture, you're going to want to talk to a tax advisor.
Thank you, Madison. Somebody asked again for the link to Fellows. So when everybody else wraps up, I'll throw that in the chat again. And also tomorrow morning, I'll share kind of like a recap and links to the resources we discussed today. And then one more question from the chat, which I saved for last, or from the Q&A. Where do you find the best interest on CDs?
That's a great question. We try to stay pretty competitive. So you're welcome to talk to any of our tellers. Also, it's a pretty easy Google search to see who has the highest rate, right now. But Fellows actually has more options than even we do. So they have some, they don't always call them CDs, but they're just as secure. It's like the investment portfolio version of a CD, where they're like guaranteed like CDs are. And a lot of times they have higher than market rates. So definitely schedule that meeting with Fellows. If you do schedule a meeting with Fellows, tell them that USSFCU sent you, and they'll take really good care of you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Madison. And I think that the part you were referring to is it's going to be the annuities. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of different plans out there. But again, Madison, I know we threw a lot at you this evening, and we cannot thank you enough. Is there anything else on the chat, ladies, that just came through? I just might have seen a message, maybe. No. Okay. If not, again, Madison, we truly, from the bottom of our heart, we just wanted to say thank you. This has been wonderful. Um, you know, for anyone, if you enjoy this webinar, please help us spread the word. This is what the United States Center for Credit Union is all about. We want to raise awareness. We want to give you any tools and tips that we can provide, that are within our limits, as Madison stated. There's certain things that we cannot get into too much into details because we are not tax professional or financial advisors. But for the most part, here in this list group of panelists, you have over, I will say, almost over 50 years of financial experience, so with banks and credit unions. So again, thank you all for being with us. And also, I want to, if you enjoy this webinar, we'll definitely want to invite you to come in and join us next week, again, next Wednesday, where we're going to be talking about how to guard your finances into the new year. We're going to be talking to you about, what are some of those practical practices that you might want to implement. What are some of the things to look for? Obviously, preventing fraud and just a whole list of different topics that we wanna share with everyone, as we and I can't believe I'm saying this, but we are almost wrapping up January. It's been insane. This probably has been the fastest January that I can remember. It truly is. But again, unless is there anything else that you
Oh,
see it in the show?
yeah, we have one more question came in.
Okay.
Can I move my IRA CD to a fellow's investment?
Yes. And my understanding is that when they do that, it doesn't like break the CD, so you're not penalized for it. So, absolutely, that's why we recommend fellows over another brokerage, is because we have that relationship with them, and so it makes that movement a lot easier. So don't let that hold you back. Meet with them.
Awesome. Thank you again, Mr. Ken. We see your message. Thank you for joining us. We're glad you're safe. Also, we know you were impacted by the fires in LA. So, our hearts are with you. And again, if there's anything that we can do for you here at the credit union, please don't hesitate. You already have Kim's direct phone line. So if you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and let us know. But with that being said, I know we went a little over the 7 o'clock. We just want to thank you all, Madison, especially to you. Thank you. And we hope to have you back in a future webinar here with all of us again.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank all of you for your time. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me and for all of your truly amazing questions. And then thank you obviously to the panel here for letting me take over. So, and I'll definitely be back.
Awesome. You all have a good evening, and we'll see you all again next week.